Pokemon will be revealing so many new things at this month's Pokemon Presents livestream. I think it could feature some of the biggest announcements we've seen in years. And there's also a really good theory as to why the Pokemon Presents is happening in July instead of early August like it usually does. But more on that later. I mean, we can start, this is what everyone's here for, right? New Mega Evolutions in Pokémon Legends Z-A. It has been, I think, 10 years since we've seen a new Mega Evolution with the release of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. You know, it's very nostalgic for me. My first ever Pokemon games were Pokemon X and Y. I guess Pokemon have started putting teasers at the end of their trailers. The second Legends Z-A trailer ends with a teaser for the Z-A Royale, and the third trailer introduces the Z-A Royale. The third trailer then ends with a teaser for a new Mega Evolution, so you can expect the next trailer to reveal some new Mega Evolutions. So which Pokemon are most likely to get new Mega Evolutions? Well, I've made a few videos about that. I think Pyroar is a major contender. It's kind of a boring Pokemon. It's featured very heavily in the first two trailers for Legends Z-A. I think Pangoro is another good candidate. The character Vinny is clearly themed around Pancham and Pangoro, so there's a good chance his ace Pokemon could be a Mega Pangoro. The Kalos starters, I think, are pretty much guaranteed as Greninja, Chestnut, and Delphox, especially after Pokemon screwed them over so badly by not giving them Mega Evolutions in X and Y. We know that Emma is in the game, and her partner Pokemon in X and Y was an Esper, so maybe we could get Mega Meowstic? She also uses Malamar in battle, so Mega Malamar is on the table as well. If you've played Generation 6, you'll already know this, but strangely only one Kalos Pokemon can Mega Evolve, and only one Unova Pokemon can Mega Evolve. With Kalos having introduced Mega Evolution and having heavy ties to Unova as well, I'm certain that the majority of new Mega Evolutions we'll see will either be from Generation 5 or Generation 6. So with that being said, I think there's some pretty good candidates for Generation 5 Pokemon that could use a Mega Evolution. Emboar is one of the starter Pokemon in Legends Z-A, so I'd say it's practically guaranteed a Mega Evolution. I think a Mega Watchog would be funny. I think it would just be hilarious for it to disappear from the games for like 10 years and then pop back up with a Mega Evolution. Given the whole redevelopment and construction theme in Legends Z-A, I'd say a few construction-themed Pokemon could get Mega Evolutions, like Excadrill, Conkeldurr, Diggersby. That last one is Generation 6, but it still counts. Generally speaking, we could get maybe Crustle, Scrafty, Zoroark, Reuniclus, Vanillux. I would love a Mega Vanillux. Does anyone remember that image from like, I assume it's from like X and Y, and it's the Mega Alakazam with all the spoons, and he's like, finally, I can eat a Vanillux with the spoons. You could do something funny with a Mega Vanillux. We could get some new Pokemon as well, maybe new evolutions for pre-existing Pokemon. I think Go-Goat would be a pretty great contender for that, since it was already sort of like a ride Pokemon in X and Y. We could also get some new forms as well, though. We could see new forms for Xerneas and Yveltal, maybe Zygarde as well. Maybe Volcanion. Volcanion's the only one of the three Kalos Mythicals that doesn't have a secondary form. I wanted to make a whole video about possible new legendaries in Legends Z-A. I never really got around to it, but a big theory when Legends Z-A was announced was that it was going to feature a new Tapu, a new Island Guardian. Because in Scarlet and Violet, once both DLCs had been released, players noticed that Xerneas, Yveltal, and Zygarde were missing from the game. You can't catch them, and you can't trade them up. After Legends Z-A was announced, some people took their absence from Scarlet and Violet as a sort of hint towards Legends Z-A. And you know what other Pokemon were missing? That's right, the Island Guardians. So logically, we could get a new Tapu, a new Island Guardian in Legends Z-A, right? I don't know how a fifth Island Guardian would make sense, or what on earth they'd be doing in Kalos of all places. So we have new Mega Evolutions, new regular evolutions, new Pokemon, new forms for Kalos legendaries and mythicals. What else do we have? We could get new gameplay and characters. Just a few weeks ago, we saw Emma for the first time, who I've been theorizing has a pretty major part in the game's story. I'd love to see a bit of the gameplay perhaps themed more around the Looker Bureau and doing some detective work around Lumiose. I think that could be fun. I'd also love to see more about the Pokedex. I was thinking about it the other day. Legends Arceus, I think, did a really good job of making the Pokedex interesting, and I really hope they try to do something similar. I don't want the exact same things, I'm not really sure it fits, but I'd like them to do something similar. Make completing the Pokedex fun, you know what I mean? We could also see characters returning from X and Y, maybe Scarlet and Violet as well. I've talked about this in a recent video, but there's a good explanation as to how Nemona could return from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. A bunch of X and Y characters could return, you know, Serena, Callum, all of the rivals, Professor Sycamore, Lysandre, question mark, he's under a bunch of rubble, but I mean, he could climb out if he wanted to. Maybe Luca and Annabelle, I don't know what they're up to. I think are they still in Alola or something? I can't really remember. But one of the things I'm most excited for, on top of the new Pokemon, new characters, new evolutions, we are probably, emphasis on probably getting a release date for Pokémon Champions. I have been so excited for this. Many VGC players have been speculating that the next format will be taking place within Pokémon Champions, and this next format is likely being announced on the 1st of August. It kind of makes sense, right? They can't announce the new format without first revealing Pokémon Champions release date, so they instead schedule an early Pokémon Presents livestream for the 22nd of July instead of the early August, which we mentioned earlier. The next format is then announced on the 1st of August, the game launches in late August and debuts with official VGC tournaments in early September. If I had to guess, I would say this is the main reason the Presents is happening in late July instead of early August. I'd also love to see more gameplay. We saw a bit. I know there's not really much apart from the battling, but I'd love to see what, you know, the menus looks like, making a team looks like. I'd love to see what the gameplay actually looks like and not just like rendered cutscenes. I'd love to know which Pokemon are in the game, because I believe it's not every Pokemon yet. Oh, I think I'm so excited for Pokemon Champions. I really want it to release as soon as possible. Talking about things you should be super excited about, this will actually be the first Pokemon Presents after the release of the Nintendo Switch 2. So the Pokemon Company will likely have the go-ahead to announce any new spin-offs they're planning to release exclusively on the Nintendo Switch 2. Of course, then there's the question of what spin-off would it be? And I think a lot of spin-offs are kind of at least somewhat inspired by previous spin-offs. I mean, there's new Pokemon Snap, which is inspired by Pokemon Snap. There's all the Detective Pikachu spin-offs. So I was trying to think about what the Switch 2 can do that the Switch 1 can't, and how that could impact which kind of new spin-off we could get. The Switch 2, I believe, does have a built-in microphone, so perhaps, hey, hear me out here, Hey You Pikachu 2? Hey You Raichu? I don't know what they'd call the sequel, but new Hey You Pikachu. That one's a bit unlikely, unless it's just like a small demo sort of thing, because I feel like they'd want to put their time into something that actually means something and not just talking at Pikachu Simulator. Mouse controls is a very big selling point for the Switch 2. That could relate to Pokemon Dash, Pokemon Ranger. I know a lot of people are looking forward to a new Pokemon Ranger at some point. I think this is probably unlikely, but I'd love to see a new Pokemon Art Academy. That's a spin-off for the 3DS, and it was pretty niche. I've never actually heard anyone else talk about it, but I really loved it when I was younger. I'd love to see a new Pokemon Art Academy with, you know, new Pokemon, high resolution. Of course, there is the elephant in the room. There is one spin-off that people have been clamoring for the past like 5 years. yeah, it's Mystery Dungeon. Everyone wants a new Mystery Dungeon. I don't know how Mystery Dungeon plays. I've got one. I have one Mystery Dungeon game for the 3DS and I've not played it yet. I feel like mouse controls, I don't remember, okay, you know what, I just think mouse controls would be good, okay? But new spin-offs is not the only thing they can do. It is not the only thing they can do. In the first Switch 2 Direct, they shared that GameCube games were going to be emulated on the Nintendo Switch 2, like Nintendo Switch Online. I'm not sure if emulation's the right word, but you can play a few GameCube games on the Nintendo Switch 2 with Nintendo Switch Online. A few were added at launch. There's a few more they're going to add later on. We don't have a release date for them yet, but that did include Pokemon Colosseum and Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. They're coming to the Switch too. I think that's pretty cool. Maybe they'll have Pokemon Home compatibility, but that also I feel opens the door for a lot of different ports we could be getting for the Switch 2. Specifically, you know, Nintendo Switch 2 Online. It already supports Game Boy and Game Boy Advance, so people have been saying it for years. It would be a pretty great opportunity, like a business-wise, to just slap the first 3 generations on Nintendo Switch Online. People have been asking for it for years. I feel like with the release of a new console, this is probably the best opportunity they have. So we've got new Mega Evolutions, new Pokemon, new regular evolutions, new forms for existing Pokemon, Legendary and Mythical, new gameplay, new characters, Pokemon Champions gameplay, release dates, probably a new Switch 2 spin-off, maybe some Switch 2 ports. I think that makes for a Pokemon Presents that could be one of the biggest we've ever seen. And I just want to say, I have waited until the very end of the video to ask you to subscribe. I've been very patient. I hope you appreciate that. If you do, you could subscribe. It's a good way to pay me back. It lets YouTube know I've done a good job with this video. And if you click on the screen right now, there'll be a video talking about the box art for Pokémon Legends Z-A. There's a few gameplay hints towards, perhaps some evil villains there.